You are now tuned in to the One Niger Show. Sorry I'm late by about 12 minutes. Giving you all a chance to get into the chat room, get it going. Make sure you guys share, and we are going to the One Niger page today. 74 degrees in New York City, mostly sunny. Traffic was light this morning. I don't know what it's like now. Everybody's up. Okay. And the stream has started. Eventually, I'm going to have to put Sandrea in the captain's chair.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to show you something, Sandrea.
Uh-oh. No, you're not.
You see where it says Zoom and Zoom?
Uh-huh.
All you do is this. And that changes the camera.
Gotcha. But we're not doing that today.
That's it.
We're not doing that today.
Hey, Janet. Yeah. It is the One Niger Show, and we're back.
Share.
Everybody share. We got a great show for you today. We have a resident council president on the line in the Zoom, and we're going to have some fun. 7 people in the chat room already. We're getting lit, y'all. Yeah. Greetings,
all
Brenda
right.
Temple's in the house. What's up, y'all? All right.
Brenda.
So I want to welcome you all once again to another edition of the One Niger Show, Season 3.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things going on, and I'm shaking and baking right now. So,
Shaking and baking?
Yeah, it's that kind of a week for me.
Okay.
And been that kind of a weekend. I've been having to do like other stuff. But we're here, and I'm glad to be here.
Right.
And you see this right here, Sandra, where it says Zoom?
Yeah.
You click. You just do that.
Right.
And you just do that.
And then it switches it back and forth.
Yeah, that's all. Right? You just do it with the mouse. Because Sandra is going to run the board today.
Oh, goodness.
Okay. Yeah, Sandrea's on the board.
After we switch over, I'll
After we switch over, then you move over.
I'll move over. Okay.
But that's what's happened with me. My week has been busy as hell, and I'm telling you, Sandrea.
Okay, so once again, greetings all. My week was busy and blessed as usual. Always giving praises and thanks to my Lord and Savior. My day today, as many know that watch the show, is checking on residents. Especially our seniors, to make sure they are not lacking anything. Of course, PPE, food insecurities, as well as any essentials. One time I was blessed to be able to help a resident get diapers as well as some chucks. So, shout out to the Isaac Center for making that happen. Monday, I poll watched for the final phase of the Holmes Towers Resident Association. So congratulations to those winners. The whole board actually got in. Tuesday, I was out with James, who is the field director of Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney's campaign. We had voter registration literature out there, as well as literature regarding her campaign. Okay. It was National Voter Registration Day, so that was good to be out there in the field and in the street. We were right by Holmes Towers. I met with Just Fix NYC recently on Wednesday. We will be eventually bringing them on the show, but they want to do some services, more work with Holmes and Isaacs. Yes.
Yeah, they told me. Mm-hmm.
Right, they mentioned you, yes. Mm-hmm. So we had a nice 1-hour meeting. Thursday, Sandra Perez, who actually won her candidacy for president at Holmes Towers, and city council candidate City Council candidate Julie Menon, we went out to lunch. So that was like a thank you lunch for all the work we did, hard work on her campaign and stuff like that. So that was good, and we had a great time. I'm going to jump right into today. Marks day number 442 at UES Vigil on the Upper East Side, which is in Carl Schutz Park. And I want to just address one ongoing issue that we have over there. We have vandalism. And we've been having it, we've been out there since June 2nd of last year. We've been having it like literally all the time here and there, but not, maybe a week, 1 week, no week like that. So now it has elevated to somebody putting feces on the posters and stuff. And what makes it so bad, makes it so bad is you're putting feces on there. Kids come out there. Now, remind you, Upper East Side, that's a predominantly rich, and upper class neighborhood. And that park serves everybody, the all community, for whoever wants to come. But it's little white kids that come there too and touch the signs, and their parents, and this person does not realize that. So he was kind of surveilled by someone, and they seen the guy with the dog. So it is dog thing, and then it was clean. And then when he left, it was the feces was there. So they actually seen one of the culprits, but like, who is this? So if we could find out who it is, we definitely going to shame them, and I hope NYCHA will support and blast it out.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, if I see him, I'm going to kick him in the balls.
That's a health hazard. So, but that's that. Yeah, that's it. So to you, Stan.
All right. I just want to give a big shout out to the residents in Ravenswood. Again, we continue to have our community meetings within the development. And the residents are really stepping up and becoming leaders and handing out the flyers. And we anticipate a situation where they eventually will totally run a community meeting. So I'm very happy to see the leadership of these residents taking place, and the movement is growing there. You know, I'm very frustrated as I continue to watch Joe Biden and our elected officials in Washington struggle to get this infrastructure bill passed that we're desperately waiting on, which is so we can have the funds to fully fund NYCHA. And it's going back and forth. I guess the progressives aren't really happy. The conservatives are not really happy. It seems to be difficult to please everybody, but as they fight, we're not getting the funds that we need. And that's the part that is very disturbing to me. And even when we do get the funds, there's some things that I found out, thanks to the work of Kristen and some of the other folks from Save Section 9. We're hearing now, that number one, that the funding may not actually save Section 9. So even though we may get this funding, it may not necessarily save public housing, which was the whole intent. I know when Chuck Schumer came on the show and spoke to us, he said a few things. One was that we're going to get this funding. Two, that it's going to be pretty much the end of any privatization plans and all of that. So in reading the bill now, it seems that may not necessarily be the case. The other part that's fine, that's a little bit disturbing, is that all the money does not come at once. So if you have this funding and you kind of lay it out over several years, it's not going to have the immediate impact that we need to have in NYCHA right now. So we cannot afford to wait, if this funding actually happens, for it to be dispersed over a long period of time. The money needs to be delivered right away because the residents need the help right now. And beyond that, going one step further, there's no involvement of NYCHA residents with the disbursement of the funds. So now we're trusting a criminal enterprise, which NYCHA is, which has actually lost all kinds of money and funding that they get. No one knows where it's at. And now if this infusion of money comes and there's no real oversight that NYCHA residents are part of, then there's concern, at least for some of us, that that money may not go and be in the right places. So that those are some of the issues. And last but not least, there's going to be an appointed secretary that's making all the decisions, on how this money is dispersed. So it puts a lot of power in the hands of one person who may not, is not, or may not be familiar fully with the NYCHA issues and problems. So even as we wait for this money, there seems to be some issues as to how this is actually going to play out. So that I find that to be very disturbing because we're looking for NYCHA to be fully funded now.
Right.
We're looking for the blueprint to be eliminated. We don't want RAD. We don't want any of that. And this funding was supposed to do that. So if for somehow it happens that it doesn't do that, then I'm gonna say to Biden, I'm gonna say to Schumer, who came on our show,
right.
That you let us down.
Yeah.
You let us down.
Call him out.
We're gonna call you out because we got him on tape, and that's pretty much you described it totally different from the way it may be sort of kind of playing out, So I'm concerned. Right. There's some concerns out there about this funding.
Okay. And real quick, Gary Fax is on today. He's with us. We usually have Money Mike, but he fills in every now and then. So introduce yourself to people again. You were on last week. You were actually a guest, kind of. Yes, last week.
And NYCHA resident.
Yeah, Rucker Houses.
Yeah.
And I need somebody because I know I have some of the residents from the RLA. Shout out to you all. That's in the chat. But he's from Rucker's Houses, so he said it was privatized. Somebody look into that. Let me know what's going on.
Yeah.
Y'all researchers, but go ahead. Just so we can jump into our guests.
What's up, everyone? I'm Gary Fax. I'm filling in for Mike Jones. I'm one of the key people behind the scenes here at Boardwalk Global Media. We have a couple of shows on. And, as Sandrea and Stan said, I'm a NYCHA resident. And I'm, involved in a lot of what goes on. So, I'm happy to give input.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So we're gonna, without further ado, trying to get this thing right because it's the first time I ever worked the board. So
Go ahead, Sandra. You got this.
first
you got
time
this.
I ever worked the board. Y'all seen me moving. I'm gonna get them. I don't like to be moving in the camera. But,
Okay, well, you got
it. Yeah. So we have a guest here today. I'm not gonna really introduce him. I just want to say who he is. Ty. I met him through the Resident Leadership Academy. We are actually in a certificate program. Some of our colleagues are also watching the show as well. So shout out to the Divine Nine. How many of you all that are in there? That's what we're called, the Divine Nine.
All right, go ahead.
So Ty, introduce yourself to our viewership. Tell them who you are and a little bit about yourself to start.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me on. I'm Tyree, known as Mr. Ty, the resident association leader for Lafayette Gardens in Brooklyn West. And I got into that position because when I moved from the co-ops across the street into Lafayette Gardens, I used to complain about everything. Nothing has changed. I complained when I was in the co-ops and I complained when I moved into NYCHA. And someone made a profound statement to me one day when they said, if you have so much to complain about and you think you can change it, why don't you run for the position? And I said, oh, you think you're saying something smart. I will run. So I ran for the position, and much to my surprise, I won the position. And I've been in it and empowering myself and the residents of Lafayette Gardens for the past 10 years actually. The past 10 years. I'm just entering my third term.
Nice.
Well, I just like to say I'm from Lafayette Gardens, so it's really a pleasure to speak to you. So you got a lot of history, Lafayette Gardens history here. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, you remember when I challenged Mr. Polite? I used to always argue with Mr. Polite, my predecessor. Why is this? Why is that? And he said, if you think you're so good, why don't you run?
Okay. Well, I'm sure you're taking good care of the residents. It's definitely personal to me. I know the co-ops across the street, so that's a very interesting story as well. But welcome to the show, man. This is big for me, so welcome.
Thank you.
So let's just jump in. I'm not sure how this frame is looking because it looks better when it's with you all, but I don't know. TPA funding, let's talk about that. Can you give a little information about that?
Well, first of all, I think anyone who decides to run for a resident leadership position must be willing to educate themselves.
Okay.
Because TPA funding requires that you have some accounting experience, some knowledge of budgets and grant writing.
Okay.
It's not something you take lightly. And I think we as residents have taken it far too lightly. We've been holding on to this money for what, 15, 20 years? And we're talking about a significant amount of money. The basic ratio for the funding has always been $25 per occupied apartment. So how do you figure that? You take let's say we have a development that has 3,000 apartments.
Okay.
But only 2,099 are occupied. One, for some reason, nobody lives in. Take $25 per apartment. That's the basic funding formula. Okay. Now, what happens is each year that formula is prorated. So in this past year, it was $11.29.
Okay.
That's still a significant amount of money that the resident leader is required by legislation. The HUD 964 and the CFR 135 require you to use the TPA funding for anything which is education, training, and development of the resident experience. Ideally, to become a resident managed corporation, to manage yourself. We have not been able to achieve that because economically, the climate has changed. If residents won't pay NYCHA the rent, what makes you think they'll pay us the rent? So we would be back in receivership and back to where we started. Well, Mr. Ty, what can we do? What we should be doing is using the TPA funding to educate our residents. So we need residents who need to know how to handle money. So we should be sending residents for training in accounting. We should be sending residents in training to learn how to talk, advocate, and speak to each other. Not, hey, you know, MF and this. No, the way that we speak to each other is not the way that we can effectively speak to politicians and funders and supporters. We need to be able to speak the language of the person we are speaking to.
Can I just pause you for 1 second?
Yes.
I want to just ask, that funding, is that per every occupied apartment? How does,
Occupied, yes.
okay, I just
Every
wanted to make sure
occupied
that was,
apartment in the,
got you. So if the apartment is vacant, no funding.
no.
And let me ask a question.
Okay.
So are you saying when you get this funding, what happens if the resident council president doesn't spend it? You know, do you find that some
Okay,
resident council
this is
presidents are
what
not spending
is-
it?
No, this is what is in negotiation in Congress and in HUD right now, because what's on the table and what has been on the table for several years is that we will lose it. HUD will eventually say, oh, you have these millions of dollars and you've never used it, so give it back and we're going to use it for something else.
Wow.
And what happens is the money sat around for many years because NYCHA didn't have an idea of how to disperse the money. So what was actually decided upon is the money is divided into the 9 districts, and then the 9 districts allocate the money according to the apartment formula. Now what's being put on the table and what has been on the table for the last few years is they don't give you everything all at once. They're not going to turn $1 million over to you and say, you know, they're just not going to give you that kind of power.
Okay.
But what they do is say that you have $100,000 in the bank, we'll say 100,000. They'll say your yearly allocation for this year, your yearly allocation for 2021 is $10,000.
Okay.
Now, if 2021 goes by and you don't use the
Okay.
10,000, allegedly you are supposed to lose it.
Wow.
They have never enforced that. However, HUD is in conversations right now that they are being strict that NYCHA must start to enforce that.
Okay.
So if you look at it for a place like Lafayette Gardens that only has 900 apartments, it's simple because I spend our money. But
Okay.
I'm saying look at developments that have in excess of 3,000 units. That's a lot of money that could be used
Right.
to empower a lot of residents. And I'll give you a very simple and the best example I can. OSHA 30.
Okay.
There
Right.
are so many NYCHA residents across the city who would like to take the OSHA 30. The OSHA 30 is a license which is
Right.
recognized by HUD, meaning that TPA funding can be spent to certify and get residents the OSHA 30 training. But the question becomes, why have so many resident leaders not taken
Tapped into that.
advantage
Right.
and provided this to residents?
Yeah.
Wow. Now, I organize in the largest housing development in the I guess in the entire country, which is Queensbridge. You know, so I can only imagine how much money Queensbridge gets or Ravenswood gets, and I don't see any of these programs you're talking about. So it appears to me that perhaps lots of money is coming into these developments and not getting spent. Is that what's happening?
A lot, all of these developments. There is no development in NYCHA which does not have or at some point had access to TPA funds. Now, why did you say it like that, Mr. Ty? I said it like that because there are certain criteria that we have to do to remain recognized, meaning you have to have a legal election, you have to have a 5-member board at minimum, and you have to write a proposal. You just can't walk and say, here, I want this much money, give it to me, I'm gonna spend it. You have to write a proposal, submit the proposal So I would write a proposal and say that I have 100 residents that I want to get the OSHA 30 for. I'm proposing to use Stan, who is a qualified teacher, and here are his credentials. This is how much he's going to charge me. These are the dates that he's going to do it. And I submit it. And they verify that I have enough money to pay. And they say, yes, I can go ahead and do it. That's the piece which is missing. And big shout out to Ravenswood. Ravenswood had I want to say maybe 2 presidents ago, you had a resident leader who had an amazing website up for Ravenswood housing. And it was amazing. It got me into social media and creating the same for Lafayette Gardens, but she had an amazing website up, and she was what I called an empowered resident leader.
Awesome.
I can't recall her name, and I don't know what happened to her, but I don't believe she is the resident leader now.
Probably not, and I don't see a whole lot of that going on in Ravenswood, where I organize a lot. So, and a lot of residents are asking these questions like, "What's happening with the money?" And they're like wondering, like they're out there not seeing it being spent to their benefit. So you definitely shedding some light, and I think that I guess we're missing out on some incredible opportunities. It looks like.
Yeah, one of the things I'll say too is one of our co-hosts, Mike Jones, he actually lives in Ravenswood, so he should be here today, but he's not for whatever reasons. But it would be good to, because we're trying to get him to run for the council, right? So let me ask you this, Ty. So, as you know, some developments did not have resident council presidents, no board, no nothing going on. They have had some elections. I know Queensbridge had an election.
Yeah,
Holmes Towers had an election. So I know Holmes has been out.
I can stop you right there 1 minute. HUD put, as soon as
you ain't
COVID
let me get my question out, though, Ty. Go ahead.
Okay. But I wanted to say HUD put everything on hold. No meetings, everything got put on hold because of COVID.
That wasn't
now
my
that
question,
COVID is the release has happened. NYCHA has been ordered to bring all elections and all resident association activity up to date, which is why you have this onslaught of activity within the resident engagement department. So it's my understanding right now that anyone who was due in 2019 and 2020, their elections must happen within the next 45 days.
Okay, that wasn't my question, so let me continue my question, Ty. Thank you. So I wanted to know about funding since they had no representation. Was funding still going in? Does it sit there? Does it not go there? That's my question to you. I'm aware of, I am aware of the fact that, the ones that didn't have representation, they were, going to be having elections. I'm aware of that. So, but like I said, my question, which I didn't get to finish, I'm trying to get it out, is what happens with funding? Does funding still come in if there's no representation, and what happens with it, if you know?
Okay, that is a big question that you ask. It has a few loopholes in it.
Okay.
There is always representation. You have to remember that having resident leadership is not arbitrary. It's not, you can or you can't.
Right.
It's required by HUD law, and it's tied into the overall picture of money that NYCHA gets. So NYCHA is going to, if say for instance, you have a development where say the president passed away, nobody wants to run, NYCHA will come in and facilitate elections. They must have a recognized board. If the board does something to jeopardize their legality, then NYCHA will send something to them and to HUD to say, we have withdrawn their recognition until they make these corrections. That allows the funding to continue. At no point does the funding is like given a while ahead. So that's why I was saying NYCHA had gotten all of that money and held on to it, which is another problem because where did all the interest go?
Right.
That's a great question. Go ahead.
Okay. Where did all the interest go? But they held on to it for these years until they decided how to distribute the money. Now the process now is each resident leader is given or they sign their name for a credit card.
Right.
So they are a legal fiduciary. They turn in a budget in January for how much they estimate they will spend during the year. So I know whatever my allocation is, I put in a budget for at least 1% over that. So I'm going to use that, plus I'm going to use 1% of my allocation that's in the bank. So you understand it's in two parts. It's allocation that you have sitting in the bank, and it's your yearly allocation that I'm giving you right now. So Stan, if I say, okay, you have $500,000 in the bank. Now, out of the money that we've been holding, I'm going to give you another $50,000 this year in 2022. However, if you don't spend that $50,000, you're going to lose it. We're going to give that to a poor development. But you will still have your money in the allocation, in the bank. What HUD is proposing now is that if you don't use your $50,000, you lose the whole entire kitty.
Wow.
You lose the allocation and you lose your yearly gift.
That's crazy.
That does sound like
I know
a good thing.
you did say in your statement just now, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that there's always representation. So can you please explain that? Because I know at Holmes Towers, I'm not sure with Queensbridge, but their board was dissolved. So there was no.
Sandy, you always want to get me in trouble.
Well, I'm trying to ask.
Because I do want to add.
Yeah,
Just
right.
because we have a board does not mean the board is visible, active, and educating.
But
There are some places that have a board. You don't know who they are.
Well, I know the coalition, the work we do, but we're not
They're not doing anything, and they are certainly not out there educating residents.
Right.
If you came to Lafayette Gardens and you said, "Oh, I have a problem with my door; it's broken. It's been broken for a month," residents are going to tell you, "Oh, you need to go over there to that office right there and see Mr. Ty."
Well, what I'm trying to get at is that the board was dissolved, and for
Who dissolved it?
Pre-COVID, there was a big meeting, and a resident or two and some vote. They got rid of the whole board. They wiped out the board, so we had no. They had.
Sorry,
let me.
A question if it was dissolved by NYCHA and HUD. Or if the residents decided, because if HUD and NYCHA had decided that for some reason their recognition was being pulled, they would have facilitated having another election unless COVID said stop.
It was pre-COVID. It happened. I believe it was 2019. But also they took away the room key from the lady and everything. So that's why I'm asking about representation, because you said there's always, but I know that they had, and the same lady ran again, maybe with a little bit of the difference with her board. She actually wanted back her seat and so forth. But I was just curious because, you know, when you're saying there's always representation, and I know that board was dissolved, I don't know if it was dissolved. I know residents did advocate some to get this done, and there was a big meeting, and there was a vote or something, and it got dissolved. So I'm here, I'm trying to, really get the gist of it, because you said there is representation, but I know that the Holmes Isaac Coalition, we have been doing work in the community, but other than that, they had no council president. No board.
And I could just add, in Queensbridge, it was the same thing. They came and took the keys, locked the door.
Yeah.
And now we did have an election, which
same day is
questionable at best. I just say that, and I guess they'll move forward, and hopefully this funds be released. But let me ask a question, and from your perspective, as I know in working with resident council presidents, I'm often in conflict with them, especially if they are for the blueprint. So my big
Okay.
question for everyone, and I ask you as well, are you for the blueprint? And do you find that most
absolutely
residents...
against the blueprint.
All right, give him some. Good. So Lafayette Gardens review will stay public. That's right. That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Right, right.
I'd like to just explain that though, because
Go
I
ahead.
don't want people to think that a lot of residents have just made the decision that it's not a good move based on what someone else said.
Mm-hmm.
My decision is based on, I am on the roundtable committee. I'm
Okay.
on the new neighborhood model committee, and I do a lot of reading. I empower myself. I am a Section 3 coordinator. am just educated fully on what it means and what it will be. And based upon my decision, I've come to the conclusion that I cannot support it because they did not explore other avenues and other options that could work just as well as the RAD option.
Right.
Why did they not come to us and say, okay, we're going to create an option that high rent players, we do have some people in NYCHA who are paying in excess
Absolutely.
of $2,500 a month.
Yes. Yep.
They can
Yep.
afford to pay and have half of their money go towards their rent and half go towards a mortgage of owning their apartment.
Okay.
Some people don't want to pay $2,500 to live in a building next door to someone who's paying $96 and they're not paying it. Our taxes are paying it, and they tear up everything. They selling drugs out of their house. They have dog poop in the hallway.
Yeah.
It's just a really bad situation. That's not to say that those are bad people. That's just to say that if I'm going to pay $2,500 rent, I want to make sure that I walk out into a clean hallway. My front door is not broken. There's no one sleeping in the hallway. And I have an option to own. I want to invest in wealth. How much have you paid over the lifespan of being a NYCHA resident?
I always tell residents
have not
that.
built any wealth.
I always tell residents
So-
that. Let me just address.
Okay.
I always tell residents that statement about you could have owned a home or two, what you're paying. But let me address the chat room real quick because
Okay.
we do that. We value our viewership. So, hello,
Are you seeing a
Janet
separate
Jackson.
chat room than I am?
I'm on Twitter. You don't have. Yeah, well, we don't. You on Zoom, so we actually on Facebook Live. So, and I am not Rock Logic. I moved into a seat, y'all. So hello to Janet Jackson, Ida Tata Cologne. She says hello from LES. Brenda, of course. Hello, Brenda Temple. Lourdes Simone is watching. Thank you for watching. Amanda McKenzie, Anna. And George Watkins, I believe she's from
Yes,
Ravenswood.
yes, Ravenswood in the house.
I believe I connected you
Yep,
all.
yep.
So yeah, so thank you for always tuning in. And she actually CCs us sometimes in some emails.
Yeah.
BCC us though, but that's good because she's setting, she's making her voice known. So
Absolutely.
we are with you, Cassie Diller. I hope I'm saying it right. I think I said Lourdes Simone. Who else? I think there was a comment. So Renee Simone. Hi, Renee. Let's see. And is Amanda, is that man? That's Mandy, right? From class. Okay, so we have her, Mackenzie here. So Renee has a question, and then after that, Stan, you can talk.
Okay.
So Renee Simone said, what is a core development? And she also said, what was the onboarding process that you went through when you became the president, or was there one? So there's couple of questions
Yes.
from Renee. Do you need me to repeat them, or you got it?
Oh, I got them.
Okay.
So the core process was, I was just a regular resident paying money, and I was frustrated with everything I was seeing. So I used to go to the meetings. That's the
Okay.
first step, is to get involved. A lot of residents feel, oh no, I don't want to get involved. I would rather, they want to say they want to tell you how to do the job, but they don't want to do it.
All the time.
Nor do they want to go and make any complaint or, as I say, rock the boat. they don't want to say, oh, the heat is off and it's 10 degrees outside. And you say, well, did you put a ticket in? Did you call somebody and say the heat is off? Oh, no, 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 no. Well, how do they know it's a problem if you don't say it's a problem? So
Right.
it was about learning the process. I had never heard of public housing before I moved into public housing.
Okay.
So I had to learn what public housing was. And I had an amazing teacher, the late Mr. Raymond Ballard, who just was a great mentor. He told me, you need to read this, you need to understand that. And every time something came on, I've always been a why baby. I used to ask why? And in learning those solutions, it empowered me to understand the process and what happens, and meeting great people like my classmates who also experience things and we discuss it. And just your core of the development is really the development that's the part of the development that stands strong, the legal part of the development. And what do I mean by that? You have some people in the development who live here,
Right.
they stay here, they have something to say, but they don't really because they're not on the lease.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not on
Right.
the lease. So you can't argue and fuss and fight if you have no legal right to be here. There's a group that fights for succession rights.
Okay.
Well, that's a big issue because there are people that have lived here 52 years since the place has been around. They have a house full of children. They are old, they pass away, and now we have to fight NYCHA for someone to keep that apartment
Mm-hmm.
because none of them, I'm saying in 52 years, you've never put anyone on the lease. If you don't want to put someone over 18 on the lease because you're afraid that they're
Rent
going to
going
knock
up.
you in your head and put you out, put a baby on.
Or
There are
the
enough
rent- or the
babies
rent.
being born here. You
Mhm.
can put a 2-year-old on the
That's
lease.
true.
Yeah.
By the
Mm.
time they're 18,
That's true.
you can have them removed from the lease so that they won't have any legal.
Hiding the incomes.
That's right.
That's hiding the incomes. Yeah. They
Exactly.
don't want to be responsible.
So what I appreciate about what you said is that you did the homework. So I got 2 questions. Did NYCHA come to the resident council presidents and explain the blueprint, which it sounds like they didn't? And also, what percentage, I guess it's a guess, but what percentage of resident council presidents do you think have done the homework? And I ask that question because I'm speaking to several resident council presidents who have no understanding of what the blueprint is. And they're representing
Yeah.
these large developments, and they really don't have a clue, So I want to get your perspective on that.
I was reading Alinsky today, and he was
Okay.
talking about, is it the ends to the means or the means to the ends, and how they juxtapose to the end result. And NYCHA is a good example of this with the blueprint. They did not come to us and fully explain and answer questions
Exactly.
about the blueprint because it's to their advantage
Speak on it.
to
Exactly.
have this confusion and not understanding the blueprint. They don't want to have to answer technical questions. And so then that question you have to say, they use these kind of means to get to these ends. They use misperception and confusion and fear to get people to the point of signing. Like, I'll give you the example. They used to ask residents, excuse me, they used to physically ask you to support going to Section 8. Remember, when residency is Section 8, we don't understand that there are or were several different Section 8 programs. So there was a Section 8 voucher program where the voucher went to the individual and they could move wherever they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
HUD got rid of that. So what
Right.
we now have are project-based vouchers, meaning that the project, whether it's a senior building, I don't mean project like we talk in slang and call
Right.
our developments. I mean project like each type of situation they call a project.
Mhm.
And the vouchers belong to it. So if your building 177, is project based, that means that everyone who lives in that building, all of those apartments become Section 8. As long as you live in that apartment has Section 8. When you move out, that apartment still has Section 8, but you don't.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's very,
And
very key.
That's a ploy. That's a ploy, because how many residents out of the 600,000 that live in NYCHA, how many do you think understand that?
I can tell you,
Right.
Ty, very little, because I have these community meetings, and I mean, it's shameful how little they know, and it's shameful how little the resident council presidents that I deal with to some extent.
The council presidents and the boards don't know.
You're right. You're
Because
right.
no one is explained to them.
Right.
They have not read the material
Yeah.
and gone over it, so they don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Right.
true. There's a guy in my my old building, he's a senior, but he's also he's done like paralegal work. And when it came to him, which he got it in the mail like a couple of months ago. So he was livid because when he read it, he understood it. But he said, this is a form of privatization. This is privatization. He basically was like pulling out the blueprint. He also said the average person can't grasp this.
Right.
You know?
We had to have
District-
attorneys and
yes,
all kind of
yeah.
people break this down. You know,
Right.
it's very complicated, and
More
that's on purpose.
importantly-
Yeah.
More importantly is the scheme that they are doing now.
Right.
And I call it that, an underhanded scheme.
Of course.
Of course, it's
Now they
underhanded.
are
Yeah.
sending a letter to your house.
Mm-hmm.
They send a letter to your house saying, are you interested in Section 8? It
Mm-hmm.
says, are you interested in project-based Section 8?
Yeah.
If you are, sign below. And what does it say? I will relinquish all of my
Mm-hmm.
debt and troubles to NYCHA Section 8.
Sad.
So what does that mean?
Sad.
That means any monies that HUD gives in your behalf for rent will go to the building.
So now, Ty, let me ask a follow. So that's troubling that you say that now. So that means I could be living in a development. I get one of these letters. I sign the letter. So actually, my apartment, even though the building hasn't been privatized, but my apartment has been privatized. That's kind of like what this sounds like. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, if 51%, this is the situation.
Wow.
If 49% of the people say they get all the letters back, and 49% of the people said no, I do not want this, then they have to go back to the drawing board. But if 51% of the people say yes, you don't have any choice. You have to go with what the majority went with.
Wow.
And if you say no and you stop paying your rent, they will eventually come and take you to court and put you out for non-payment.
Yeah.
Ty, that's important information.
Yeah.
51% is critical. I have begun at Lafayette training sessions with small groups of residents to teach them what it means, what the letter means, what the privatization means. Because what they've done is they come here and they bring residents from other developments where they are so happy or were so happy with what happened. One development right down the street from us, they went private, and they cannot be compared to Lafayette because they are 4-story walk-ups. They don't have elevators. They don't have hoppers for the trash. So when I asked them and I said, well, did they work on your elevators? Did they put in new boilers? Their answers were, oh no, we don't have elevators. We don't have the boilers like that. What they did was they put a shell over our old bathtub, and they put up new cabinets in the kitchen and new paint on the wall. And those residents were happy until most recently I spoke to them, and they're upset because the cabinets have fallen off the wall.
Thank you
Yeah.
for saying that. Thank you. And the mold comes back, and the leaks come back, and all the other things that the NYCHA residents are dealing with come back, and now you have less power. I'm so
Keep
glad.
in mind,
you
it's
pointed
a
that.
new lease. Keep in mind, it's a new lease.
Yep.
Once the 51% sign and say they want to go over, the new company will come in with a new lease. Your lease with NYCHA is null and void. You no longer have a NYCHA lease. If they come in, if Stan's Occupy Company takes over, then Stan's Occupy Company is going to execute a new lease, and everyone has to sign.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, we signed the new lease. I'm subject to what the new lease says.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of residents are having problems because a lot of it says in the new lease that if you'll be 3 times late, we have the right to put you out.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
If
Say
you
that.
have people staying in your apartment and they're not supposed to be, we have the right to put you out. All of these are things which are basically in the NYCHA lease agreement, but they have never been enforced. So it's just like not having them.
Yeah.
If you look at Ocean Bay,
Yes.
Ocean Bay was the first development to go
We
private.
talk. Yeah. Yeah.
And their eviction rate and their eviction action rate shot up to over 80%.
Absolutely.
Horrible.
And NYCHA had to go back and renegotiate the contract. That contract that they allowed that developer to sign, they said, oh no, we can't let this happen again. We can't have this many people be taken to court for eviction action. But it happens.
Right.
All right. Let me jump into the chat again.
Wow.
So,
Great information, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Bringing that information.
Yeah.
Good, Sandra.
Aisha says, I think tenant association leaders need to go through an onboarding once elected. Yeah. Let's give us some for that.
Yeah, I think that's true because what they do is they don't onboard you or they don't bring you in the picture until they need you.
Yeah.
HUD says something, oh, you guys, we have too many complaints about this. They are complaining that you are not allowing them to use their money properly. So what did they do? They came up with the commercial card and then they needed us and then they onboarded us.
Let me finish.
But when they had no onboarding, no introduction or training about about this whole, trust and that piece, not even today, they haven't. They immediately went right to the residents and started training and educating the residents. Oh, and notice how they do it. They don't say, these are the 2 options. They say, this is what's good for you.
So the letter states that? You saying that language is actually in
No, I'm saying when they had the round table.
Right, okay, I got you.
The round table.
Right, okay.
At the round table, they didn't say these are the options that are on the table.
Right, I got you.
They did like your doctor does. You go to the doctor and you have cut yourself. And the doctor says you are going to need 8 stitches. We're going to put 8 stitches in. That's exactly what they did with the round table. You went to the round table and they told you, Russ is going to try to get this trust and you need to go along with it. So how many residents just hopped on the bandwagon without asking any question? And even Chairman Russ is a controversy because one of the tactics that people do when they are trying to organize and get people in line with an idea of favor or what they want you to do is they will bring in some kind of expert who's an expert in doing this. Right. So what did they do? They brought in Greg Russ, who's an expert in rolling over and rolling in the RAD and the PAC and the trust. They didn't just arbitrarily pick him. They picked him because this was a plan that was in the making.
Yep.
And they got someone that they knew had experience in this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Let me run back to the chat again.
Great information, Ty. Great.
I want to make sure our viewership is being recognized. Brenda Temple says, God forbid if you increase your income above Section 8 requirements, nefarious plot. There was something else I think you were speaking about. I don't know when this came in. But Renee Simone said, what is the name of the development? So if you think about that, let us know, Ty.
Section 8 requirements have a higher threshold than the 30%. if you know right now, there is this thing with the ERA, the rental assistance program
ERAP.
that's helping
ERAP.
people
It's
pay
called
their
ERAP.
rent. Regular NYCHA residents are not accepted because the excuse is you already have a subsidized rent. In the lowest person on the totem pole that can apply is our Section 8 residents. So the notice that they sent out to resident leaders said that we should encourage residents that are Section 8 to apply for the ERA rental assistance. And when I did someone's annual yesterday, I noticed that as a part of the annual process now, they have added in a form that says, I give my permission to NYCHA to seek ERA funding in my behalf.
Oh shit! Are you
They want their
serious?
money. They want their money.
But so are you saying, so if they sign that form to get this funding, in effect, that's a backdoor way to have them accept Section 8? Is that, am I seeing that correctly?
Yes, if you sign the form and then this weekend Biden says, you know what, even subsidized people, we're going to help them pay for their rent assistance. You already signed the form, so you don't even know that it was given to you.
Exactly.
There's going to be a lot of litigations going forth
Because this is really incredible.
Unjust, you know, and sending out stuff to people, literature for them to sign, and they don't really have any counsel on it, which is just horrible. Because, you know, especially our seniors, you know, they're the most vulnerable. Because, you know, it's just bad.
Wow.
Amanda says, what happens if you don't sign the new lease? And I'm trying to get to your comments. It's quite a bit, so we are acknowledging it.
51%, if 51% of the development signs that they agree that you guys should go private, you don't have a choice.
So let me ask,
if there are 100 people living there and 51 people sign it saying, yes, I think we should go private, the other 49 people don't have a choice. You have to sign the new lease or be taken to court for non-payment.
Yeah, Stan, you got a question?
I mean, this is unbelievable, you know, so, because we're finding now that you've explained some of this, now I'm understanding how beyond what they announced with RAD and beyond, I think the blueprint's supposed to be on hold. It's supposed to be actually voted on by the state assembly. But it seems like now they've found a way to kind of circumvent that, you know, and you're finding more privatization happening, you know, than we even know about. So now that you've explained it in this manner, which I'm telling you, this is great information for me, I'm now understanding how this is happening, you know, and they're trying to really get rid of it even beyond the state assembly voting on it. They're finding a backdoor way to do it, which is incredible. It should be illegal.
Right. Go ahead.
Well, basically, it's like they want. So if you don't know about it, so for the residents that don't know about it, they're signing their rights away.
Absolutely.
Right. So clearly, NYCHA has their attorneys that are drafting these things up.
Right.
With basically, I guess some people would call it a nefarious plot.
Right.
It is.
Brenda Temple, yeah, she said it.
It's nefarious. It's ridiculous.
Where to deliberately lie to people and have people sign away their rights, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, that's a major problem.
But here's my thing: do we really think that if this goes down in the way NYCHA is plotting it to go down, that they're not going to be in court? They're not going to be sued? Yes, they're going to be sued.
They're going to have to be.
You know, because we have a whole lot of advocates on the street for us that advocate for us. And if you're signing stuff that you are not, you signed it, but it's coming from NYCHA, so it's coming from my landlord. I think it's good if that's what the case is. But if this is all to, harm people, get them into mass evictions or whatever's going to happen, there's going to be a heck of a big class action.
The problem with that is time. There are so many legal actions that are in court and taking place right now, and NYCHA has been accused so many times of twisting or shaping it to their narrative how they
They
want.
are.
And one of the things that
Right.
they've been able to use to get out of a lot of this is, well, this is what the federal requirement is versus what the New York Assembly requirement is. Because remember, above everything, first and foremost, above everything, we are federal housing.
Yeah.
Right.
New York State can't oversee and tell HUD, no, we're not going to do something, because NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority, is run by the state of New York in name only. We are a federal housing program, which mandates everything. Now, what they do is they play between the two. They say, oh, this is what HUD requires, but we can tweak it and make it like this because this is what New York State requires, and we are not changing the federal law. We just not doing everything it requires. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
If I
right.
say you have to wear 2 shoes into the street, well, you have on 2 shoes, but you didn't tie 2 shoes.
Right.
So we have to learn to be educated and speak the same language that they speak. It says 2 shoes that must be tied, and they must have a rubber bottom at the least, not just put on 2 shoes. And
Right.
we, as people of lesser means, I will say, are famous for picking out the part that we like and over just skipping the major part. Look at what happened with the lead. They're still in court with the lead abatement because now they are saying that the lead abatement agreement does not or did not apply to the Section 8 program. Well, who asked that? Where was that in the contract? You signed, I signed, and that was not a discussion. We assume that because NYCHA has a Section 8 program, that they will be a part of the lead abatement. Well, now they're back in court because they are meeting the requirement or the target for the dates for lead abatement in NYCHA apartments, but they are not meeting the target for lead abatement in Section 8 apartments. And so somebody argued for them, well, that's not what the contract says. The contract does not require us to meet the requirements for Section 8, to make that, available for Section 8. Look at succession rights. Succession rights in Section 8, everybody gets a room of their own. Look at the NYCHA agreement. The way NYCHA does it, 2 people of the same sex share a room.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so we just have to be very serious
Yeah.
about what we're asking and who we ask about it.
We definitely need counsel. So
Yeah, we need. Yeah, we do.
attorneys need. I mean, there should be no resident signing something without counsel. And I would just want to let you know that your city council members and so forth, your elected officials, some of them are attorneys, and if they're not, they have access to attorneys. They have legal clinics. So I suggest that if you get any form in the mail, any NYCHA resident, young and or seasoned, so be careful what I say, right? And seasoned, and don't
I don't
sign.
work
Let me
for
finish,
NYCHA,
Ty.
so I
No,
can-
no,
okay.
let me finish, Ty. I want you all to get some counsel before you sign on a dotted line. This is not just, I'm speaking of your lease. I'm speaking of all this other literature that they're mailing out to residents. So get counsel on it, because sadly, you might be signing something that's going to impact you negatively in the long run.
Right.
Now, what I do know, and I'm not an attorney, but I do know with law, there's always loopholes even in the best writing of anything. So, but you would need somebody to find a loophole
Right.
after you sign something. But with this, it should be possibly a class action lawsuit if this negatively impacts a lot of residents.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I will say, and I don't work for NYCHA, so I'm saying this as a resident leader. I'm a resident. I'm saying it as one resident to another resident. If something comes in the mail don't sign it.
Right.
But I'm saying they need
I'm
to
just
get
gonna be
counsel.
realistic.
Get
Don't
counsel
sign
anyway.
it because NYCHA, everything that NYCHA requires really of you as a bold legal document comes through your NYCHA self-help portal. So when you do your annual review, you can see it right there on the computer, and it's no tricks or they can't weasel their way out of that because it's there legally, and you just click the button. But if you get something in the mail, there's a whole lot of things. They can say they never received it back.
That's
Never
right.
received it on time. You misunderstood it. It was no further info. You should have asked questions and further information. And as NYCHA moves away from this idea of getting help from offices, that's a whole nother thing. It used to be a time we used to go into the management office for everything. Now, the model of the next 10 years are to close management offices, and there are only going to be people there once or twice a week to like show new apartments and put people out.
Wait.
So
Say. Repeat that again now. But what's going on with the management offices? Say that again?
So the idea of the future is that we don't need to have physical management offices in place. So if you were to canvass NYCHA developments, some NYCHA developments don't have a management team there all the time. Their management team is only there a few days a week, and they're there to do things like show new apartments, give keys, do conversations, but they are not there every day, all day, like we have it now, because you're supposed to be using the NYCHA self-help portal.
Wow.
Craziness.
So therefore, then if a resident has a complaint for repairs in their apartment, which now you're explaining some things that I'm noticing now. So they're very less.
My NYCHA app.
Wow. And that's, so they, wow. Wow.
There's also been consolidation. I don't know about other developments, but I know McKinley and Forest Houses, there's a consolidation with management, so they actually have to do everything in Forest Houses now. McKinley Houses always had a management office that was open.
Right.
We paid our rent there years ago because I grew up there. Shout out to McKinley Houses. I grew up there, but in the later years, everything is straight to Forest Houses. So I don't, that's another step. I mean, it's more like, if you look at it, they're trying to make it like banks, right? They're removing the tellers,
everything
right?
automated, right.
Everything automated, which doesn't work. Like I had an incident with Chase, and I was putting in a check, and I wanted to go to the teller, but they come out, oh, no, we want you to do I wanted to go to the teller. So when they said I did it that way, my funds were not available. And this was a Chase to Chase check.
Right.
So it should have cleared, and it didn't go into a particular account that it does take a little time. I don't want to talk, but anyway, but it went into a different account that it should have cleared right away. So I went in, the next day complaining because it was late in the evening when I did it. The bank was still open, and my funds were not fully available. Not that, I wasn't going to do anything, but so after that, I'm used to just having my funds available. So after that, I started going straight to the teller all the time. Chase did actually correct that with a Chase to Chase account. As long as it's not your business account, your funds will be available.
Right.
But that was you telling me to go to the machine, and I want to go to the teller, because when I go to the teller, I know everything is okay.
Absolutely.
And that's for anybody, right? So I did conform to that because they made the adjustments, because it's a controller check that I get. So it comes from the city of New York, Chase, and I get it,
More importantly, we as NYCHA residents need to understand what it means to work quicker and more intense. Okay, we complain about, they put this here, or they tore this building down. They do that 10 years in advance. That decision is made. They're voting today in 2021 for things that will not begin until 2011.
with a different administration
Absolutely.
sometimes.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
The
right.
same thing with NYCHA. NYCHA is planning 10 years from now, who are they talking to? If you look at most things that come out of NYCHA, it says 16 to 24. Most of their programs, all the programs that come out of Reese, they target and they say they want people 16 to 24, the next generation of NYCHA. They've already sort of given up on this generation.
And its
They're
generation.
focusing on
right.
our kids.
Next generation.
They're looking for money.
Right,
That's
yeah,
right. They're
that's
looking for-
right.
yeah.
That's right.
They're looking for money. They're looking
And
for some
they
other people to
use
make more money.
telephones, tablets. They don't go in the offices. Everything they do is, when they renew for their SNAP, they do it on their little phone. When they pay their rent now, they do it. It's on their phone. They just transfer money. So as they are more and more able to use these things for us, for the young people, they use it against us to get us out.
And actually allows them to avoid accountability. I want to go into the manager's office and see somebody and say, hey, this is what's happening in my apartment. If I'm trying to put an app in and nothing happens, there's no one for me to talk to or hold accountable, which is how, which is what they're doing.
So we did start a little late today, so we want to apologize. One NYCHA, One People, we definitely want to apologize for starting a little late today, but we do have other shows before us, and but we're here, and we thank you, Ty, for coming on. We're about to wrap up, but thank you, Ty, for coming on. We appreciate all your input, and we would love to have you back in the future. Excuse me, with a follow-up possibly.
Thank you.
And definitely.
Can I just say one last thing?
Yeah, then
I want to encourage you and all residents next week to pay attention carefully, because the Citywide Council of Presidents, they did sign a new contract and agreement with NYCHA. None of the local presidents were involved in that process. We don't know what's in it, but I'm sure it's going to be some fireworks.
Okay.
So you gotta come back and explain that and keep us informed. He's
Definitely.
our inside guy now. And I want to say, as a former Lafayette person living in Lafayette Gardens, I'm glad to see that it's in good hands. That you're very informed. So that's very comforting to me. I'm very glad to see that. You probably one of the most informed resident council presidents that I personally spoke to. So I'm glad to see that.
Any closing remarks from you, Stan, other than that?
That was it.
Your week? Okay. What about you?
None. This is great information. Listen, I'm all about people need to be informed, right?
Facts.
It's highly important that our residents need to be informed. This whole privatization going on, it's something serious.
Yes.
And I mean, it's, there also needs to be resources out there where residents can feel like they can go see an attorney and what have you, because it's going to take a collective effort on a couple of different levels to really fight back with NYCHA.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're moving like the mafia. So
Exactly.
You said that.
Yeah,
you
they're
said
moving
that
like the
before.
mafia. They really
Exactly.
are.
I want you all to save a date. Monday, October 25th, Community Board Manhattan 8 is having a Social Justice Committee meeting, which I co-chair. We will have a medical professional on, and we will be talking about some of the issues within NYCHA and our health. I'm hoping that you all can join. I'll put links in later for you to register to join, and you could actually be in the community board meeting live with us. And if not, I will try to have the link of the the YouTube that's live. I'll drop it into the One NYCHA page on that day. But I'm hoping that this will be a very informative meeting, especially regarding our health. A lot of residents, we're living in NYCHA, and we don't know the underlying conditions that has exacerbated in our lives, not from where we worked at, not from maybe if you smoke cigarettes. It could be just from living in NYCHA.
That's right.
From
Right.
the mold, from the mildew,
that's right.
from the infestation. So NYCHA, our health matters, and this is a very important committee meeting we're doing. I am really vested deep in it, and I'm hoping that we can have some people tune in or watch it even later. Just get the information and just understand. We speak a bit about the lead poisoning And a lot of people, you know, we focus on the kids, but if your child is affected with lead, as I said before, you're probably affected with the lead as well.
Yep.
And you need to be tested as well. So, yeah, that's basically it. Save the date. I'll continue to talk about it during the rest of the shows coming up to just keep y'all reminded of it. But this was a great show. Once
Great
again,
show.
thank you, Ty, for coming on. I would say you're a friend to the show. Yeah. And we'll be in touch, of course, and I'll see your classmates, all of the Resident Leadership Academy classmates that are here, the Divine Nine. I don't know if all 9 are in and watching, but shout out to you all and our professors, Artie and Michael. We really do great work together, and we learn from each other. There's a saying, and it's in the Bible, iron sharpens iron, and that's what it's about. You know, we learn from one another. So once again, thank you, Ty, for coming on, give you the horns and everything. We really appreciate this, and we definitely will bring you back on down the road. And that's it, you all. We about to lift off. One night you're one people. Do the thing, guys. One night you're one
One night,
people.
one people. Let's go. Let's
One
go.
night you're one people.
You got the music. You got
One
about
night
sign
you're
off
one,
music.
one night you're one people.
There you
Okay.
go. We out.
All right, Ty. We out.
All right.